Alright guys, so now we are learning about chapter 7 key issue 3 and key issue 4, and basically chapter 7 key issue 3, 4. So chapter 7 key issue 1, like you remember, we talked about the difference between race and ethnicity. Then in key issue 2 we took those concepts of race and ethnicity and we then extended those to the concept of nationality, nation, state, multi-ethnic state, multinational state, and stateless nations. And we also then combined the concepts of centripetal and centrifugal forces. So let's talk about what that then looks like in reality in real countries, and how these concepts of ethnicity and race and multi-ethnic states and multinational states, and then the pursuit of the nation-state concept. So this idea of an ethnicity ruling itself, or what's called self-determinism, how that can often lead to conflicts. So we're going to talk about several conflicts today. So we're going to talk about the conflict, the groups involved, what was the conflict over, the major facts on the struggle, the war, the conflict, and what was the outcome or the resolution. Please find this document that you created. We did this for homework, and then you, with your partner, found articles and links to those articles. So let's go over these conflicts. Let's start with Ethiopia and Eritrea. This was a group, involved the countries of Ethiopia and Eritrea, and these were boundary disputes. And basically, Eritrea gained independence in 1991. But Eritrea itself is split by religion and ethnicity. And what ended up happening is these two, Ethiopia and Eritrea, they split into two separate countries with disputes with each other and with different groups and religious and ethnic groups within their countries. So there are some real issues here whenever you take a look at the Muslims and Christians and the animists in these countries. So even today, it's still a boundary dispute between them. Next, let's talk about the conflict in Sudan. So in Sudan, this was a conflict between the Arab Muslims and the black Christians and animists in the south. So this is a religious conflict between, again, the Arab Muslims, the black Christians, and the animists. And basically the Muslims in the north versus the Christian and the animists in the south. And this was also attempted genocide. And this was a very lengthy civil war with many killed and millions displaced in refugee camps. This is where you have this territory of Darfur, which is where there were a lot of refugee camps. And then also a lot of refugees spilled over into Chad. And whenever countries accept refugees, it's very problematic, because the country that has refugees, in Chad, they had over 1 million refugees in camps who were set up in just barren land in the border between Sudan and Chad. Well, Chad and the international community has to provide for those people, because those people aren't going to work. There's nothing for them to do. They're living in refugee camps. And so they have to provide basically everything for them. And then you have to remember that displaced people in refugee camps, they flee their country, and so they're taking with them whatever they can carry. So they have nothing really with them. And so this conflict resulted in Sudan splitting into two countries, South Sudan and Sudan. And this happened just in the last couple of years, and they still have conflicts there between the different groups, the Arab Muslims, the black Christians, and the animists. And this was also a conflict over use of land between farmers and herders. You'll see this a lot throughout Africa and Central and Southwest Asia, where you have farmers who are sedentary and they fence in their land, and it's very important for them because they're subsistence farmers and they live off that land. And then you have the herders who need to move their herds around for food and water and seasonally, and so they're moving through land, and the farmers have fenced off this land so the herders can't go through it. So then this results in a lot of conflict. Next, and you can see that in each one of these situations, there will be centrifugal forces. Here, this boundary dispute, the religion, the ethnic diversity, that's centrifugal force that resulted in war. Sudan, this religious differences, and then you have also the ethnic racial differences, and then you have land use differences, all of those centrifugal forces. Next, let's talk about Somalia. Somalia is actually a very tumultuous country. You have clans that are in the north, the center, and the south, and they identify more strongly with their clan than their country. Excuse me. And so this was control over separate areas that they now declare are independent countries. So again, you have this issue in Somalia still, where the centrifugal forces here would be that their clan differences, and these clans, the tribes, they identify much more strongly with one another than they do with the country as a whole. This turned into a civil conflict between Islamists, extremists. ISIS was involved in this conflict in Somalia, and Eritrea and other Muslims in Ethiopia, also with the United States, got involved in this conflict in Somalia. So the Islamic militias, the Islamist militias, this would be, again, ISIS was involved in this, control much of this country today. So again, these religious differences, the clan differences, all of this is centrifugal forces that are so great that they result in war. Next, let's talk about Lebanon. Lebanon is a very diverse country. There are different ethnic groups and religious groups. You have Christians, Sunni Muslims, Shia Muslims, and then Greek Orthodox Christians who are there. And these differences, as well as their alliances with different, like the Shia Muslims are very strongly aligned with Iran, and the Sunni Muslims, this is where you run into Sunni Muslims with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and so this is centrifugal force when you have this sort of religious difference. And this is a battle over political control and representation in the government. They had a very lengthy civil war from 1975 to 1990. And it became more peaceful in the last several years after 1990. However, this is an ongoing civil conflict, and they've had a lot of spillover from the war in Syria into Lebanon. So again, centrifugal forces resulting in war. Next, let's talk about the situation in South Asia. So this is between the Muslims in Pakistan and Bangladesh versus the Hindus in India. This was a religious and ethnic group conflicts over territory control. So again, these religious differences, these differences in ethnicity, these are centrifugal forces here. So what happened was at the end of the British rule in 1947, they divided the Indian subcontinent into two separate countries, India and Pakistan. And this resulted in one of the largest migrations in human history. And so basically they divided India, was divided up, and this was mainly for, this was going to be a predominantly Hindu country, and Pakistan and Bangladesh were going to be primarily Muslim countries. So this migration was that Muslims who were in India, they migrated out of India and into Pakistan and Bangladesh. And Hindus who were in the territory that would have been Pakistan and Bangladesh, they migrated out into India. So you had this cross-boundary migration. This is an ongoing dispute between Pakistan and India over the territory of Kashmir, which is still part of India. So again, centrifugal forces here, that when they were under colonial rule in the Indian subcontinent, once that independence was given to them in 1947, that this proved that these conflicts, these differences were just too great, that they could not unite. This was so great that it actually resulted in the death of Mahatma Gandhi during this time. Next, let's talk about Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, you have the Sinhalese Buddhist versus the Tamil Hindus. So again, the Sinhalese Buddhists versus the Tamil Hindus. This is an ethnic dispute where the Sinhalese are 82% of the population. And this is this is when centrifugal forces are so great, where there really isn't much unifying here. The Sinhalese, they speak a language in the Indo-European family, specifically in the Indo-Iranian branch, while the Tamils speak a language in the Dravidian branch. So there are very few similarities in language. And then in addition, this is the Sinhalese. They are Buddhists, and the Sinhalese, they are Buddhist, and the Tamils are Hindus. So you have not only language difference, you have religious difference, and then you have ethnic difference here as well. And so basically, this dispute has lasted over 2,000 years, but during colonial times, it was pretty calm. But then Sri Lanka gained independence in 1948, and the Sinhalese dominated because they are the largest part of the population, and the Tamils feel very discriminated against. And so this war finally ended in 2009 with a Tamil defeat. The Tamils are fearful that they've already made Buddhism the official religion. They've made the Sinhalese language the official language there. So the Tamil are fearful that they're going to be significantly discriminated against. Next, let's talk about Bosnia. Bosnia, this is an ethnic conflict where centrifugal forces, the multi-ethnic situation resulted in attempted genocide. This was the pursuit of the nation-state concept 100%. Bosnia was part of the former Yugoslavia that broke apart because of those same forces, centripetal and centrifugal forces. So basically in Bosnia, 48% of the people were Bosnian Muslims, and this conflict was between them and the 37% Serb and 14% Croat. And so the Serbs and the Croats, they did not want to live in a country with a Muslim plurality. And so they combined forces, the Serbs and the Croats, so 37%, 14%, they combined forces, and they attempted ethnic cleansing against the Bosnian Muslims. So they tried to push them out of their countries. They tried to kill them. And so this is actually 1996. This is not 1196. This is 1996. Bosnia and Herzegovina divided into 3 different regions. Excuse me, this is supposed to be regions. This is an autocorrect situation. So 1996, Bosnia and Herzegovina divided into 3 regions, one each dominated by each groups. The Serbs got half the country, the Croats got a fourth, and the Muslims got a fourth. So again, this is where you have the pursuit of the nation state, where the Serbs and the Croats, they wanted to live in a homogenous society, and so they tried to cleanse the Bosnian Muslims from this particular country. So again, this is an ethnic and religious difference. Next, let's talk about Kosovo. Kosovo, this was the Serbs versus the ethnic Albanians, and in Kosovo, 90% of the population were ethnic Albanians. Kosovo was also part of the former Yugoslavia in the Balkan Peninsula that broke apart because of the centrifugal forces of too many ethnicities, too much diversity. They just could not unify the people because of the ethnic differences, language differences. They had completely different histories of people and such. So in Kosovo, the Serbia wanted to control and dominate Kosovo. They thought that they had historical ties to this territory of Kosovo, and they wanted to be rid of the ethnic Albanians. So by 1999, the Serbs had forced 750,000 of the 2 million ethnic Albanians out, mainly to refugee camps in Albania. And the U.S. and NATO forces, they started strikes against Serbia to stop this situation. And it was successful, and Kosovo declared its independence in 2008. You have to remember, these conflicts in Eastern Europe, so especially we're in the Balkan Peninsula, which has been a hotbed for a large number of years, they've had wars in recent history, most of them ethnic and religious based, most of them because of this pursuit of the nation state. So again, Kosovo, this is another example of the pursuit of the nation state concept, where centrifugal forces, these ethnic diversities, lead to the situation.